What if I told you a rock star once threatened to name his album after its price tag? In 1981, Tom Petty battled against corporate greed in a fight that would change the music industry forever. As record labels tried to squeeze more money from fans, Petty stood up and said no more. This is the story of how he risked everything to keep music affordable, and the dirty tricks the industry used to try and stop him. The price of fame Petty takes on the industry. In 1979, Tom Petty found himself in a dire situation. Despite having a record deal and radio hits, the young rocker was broke and filled with anger. He had signed with Shelter Records, believing it would lead to success, but instead, he faced financial ruin. The harsh truth hit when Petty discovered he'd unknowingly signed away his publishing rights. This meant he wouldn't earn a cent from his songs' use in movies, TV shows, or cover versions. It was a common tactic used by record labels to exploit young artists. Things got worse when Shelter Records sold his contract to MCA without his consent. Petty had specifically negotiated a clause requiring consultation before any such transfer. Furious at being treated like a commodity, he made a bold decision that shocked the industry. He filed for bankruptcy. It was a desperate gambit using a legal loophole to void his contract and regain control of his music. MCA's legal team was stunned. They feared that if Petty succeeded, it could inspire other artists to follow suit. The industry wasn't about to let one rebellious artist upset their entire system. The $500,000 gamble. With his career hanging by a thread, Tom Petty faced a gut-wrenching decision: play it safe or risk everything on one album. The price tag? A staggering $500,000 in 1981, an amount that could make or break an artist forever. Still reeling from legal battles, Petty made the bold choice to self-fund his next record, Hard Promises. It was a massive gamble that pushed him to the brink of financial ruin. The pressure was immense, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. As recording began, the weight of Petty's decision hung heavy in the studio. Band members felt the strain, knowing that every minute spent tweaking a guitar riff or perfecting a vocal take was burning through their leader's dwindling resources. The usual excitement of creating music was overshadowed by constant worry. Petty's relationship suffered as he poured everything into the album. He barely slept, consumed by fear that this enormous risk might not pay off. The music industry watched from the sidelines, many expecting Petty to crash and burn. As the album neared completion, tensions reached a boiling point. Petty had created something he believed in, but at what cost? Then came another cruel twist. MCA wanted to raise the album's retail price by $1, from $8.98 to $9.98. In a move that left the industry stunned, Petty refused to release the album. After all the money spent, all the sleepless nights, all the strain on his band and family, he was willing to shelve the entire project over a single dollar. How close did Petty come to losing his career over $1? The answer was terrifyingly close. He had bet everything on this album, and now he was refusing to let it see the light of day. It was a standoff that could have ended his music career forever. Looking back, Petty later admitted, "It may have been a sham in some ways, the bankruptcy strategy, but at the time, it felt very real and very scary." He had pushed all his chips to the center of the table, and now he was calling the industry's bluff. The record industry was about to learn a hard lesson. They had underestimated Tom Petty's resolve, and they were about to find out just how far he was willing to go to stand up for what he believed in. The industry strikes back. As MCA unleashed their legal storm, Tom Petty found himself in a nightmarish situation. The label's lawsuits effectively silenced him, preventing him from releasing new music or performing live. His career, built through years of hard work, now teetered on the brink of collapse. The personal toll on Petty was immense. As legal bills mounted and his income vanished, stress took its toll. Friends noticed a drastic change in the once easygoing musician. The energetic performer who once lit up stages now appeared drained and defeated, his trademark demeanor replaced by constant worry and fatigue. This aggressive tactic wasn't uncommon in the music industry of the time. Labels often flexed their financial and legal muscles to keep artists in line, making examples of those who dared to challenge the status quo. Many artists, facing such overwhelming pressure, would eventually surrender and accept unfair terms just to salvage their careers. As Petty's legal battle dragged on, his future in music looked increasingly bleak. Industry insiders whispered that he was finished, a cautionary tale for any artist considering standing up to the powers that be. However, an unexpected turn of events occurred. As news of Petty's fight spread, fans began rallying around him, viewing him as a hero standing up for artists' rights. This public support caught MCA off guard, forcing them to reconsider their approach. In a calculated move, MCA attempted to turn public opinion against Petty. They spread rumors painting him as greedy, claiming he was the one pushing for higher album prices. It was a clever spin, trying to cast Petty as the villain in his own story. But Tom Petty wasn't ready to throw in the towel. As the industry tried to bury him under lawsuits and lies, he quietly prepared his next move. Unbeknownst to them, Petty had a strategy so daring it would leave the entire music industry stunned: the $8.98 rebellion. Tom Petty was about to prove that sometimes a clever album title could be more powerful than a multi-million-dollar corporation. In 1981, as MCA Records planned to raise album prices, Petty decided to take a stand. Faced with MCA's attempt to increase prices from $8.98 to $9.98, Petty saw it as an attack on his fans and the future of rock music. He refused to release his new album, Hard Promises, at the higher price. But Petty didn't stop there. He threatened to title the record $8.98 as a direct protest against the price hike. This bold move put Petty's entire career at risk. If MCA won, it could lead to skyrocketing album prices across the industry, potentially making music unaffordable for many fans. Petty argued that without resistance, prices could eventually reach $20 or more per album. As word of Petty's stand spread, fans rallied behind him. They saw him as a champion fighting against corporate greed, willing to sacrifice his own success for the sake of affordable music. This public support put immense pressure on MCA, who found themselves cast as the villains in this high-stakes battle. The tension built as both sides refused to back down. MCA, with its vast resources and industry influence, seemed unbeatable. But Petty, armed with nothing more than a clever album title and unwavering determination, stood his ground. In a surprising turn of events, MCA finally gave in. They agreed to keep the album price at $8.98, backing down in the face of Petty's threat and the public backlash. Tom Petty had achieved the unthinkable, outmaneuvering a corporate giant with wit and willpower alone. While Petty celebrated this hard-fought victory, dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. The music industry wasn't about to let this rebellion go unpunished. As Petty savored his win, the powers that be were preparing to strike back, setting the stage for what would become the fight of his life, the aftermath and legacy. Petty's triumph over MCA came at a heavy cost. The music industry, shaken by his defiance, turned their backs on him. The once energetic performer struggled with insomnia and anxiety, often questioning if his fight had been worth it. But his stand had sparked a quiet revolution. His new contract gave him unprecedented control over his music, and other artists took notice. Record labels, fearing similar uprisings, began reassessing their practices. Artist contracts started including more favorable terms. Perhaps the most significant change came in album pricing. Labels became more cautious about raising prices, aware that artists and fans were now watching closely. The idea that musicians were mere commodities to be exploited began to crumble. As fellow musician Gary Jules noted, Tom Petty was a huge advocate for musicians' rights, even before there was any sort of term for it. His fight had paved the way for a new generation of musicians to stand up for their rights. Tom Petty's battle against the record industry reshaped the music landscape. He fought for artistic freedom and respect in an industry that often treated musicians like commodities. His struggle showed the power of standing up for one's principles, even when facing overwhelming odds. When you hear a Tom Petty song on the radio, remember the man who refused to back down. His legacy lies not just in his music, but in the example he set for all of us.